In the wake of their failure to stop the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, the George Soros-funded Council of Unhinged Leftist Knuckleheads, or CUCK, gathered last night to discuss whether they should come up with some new tactics. CUCK President Dieter Fascist addressed the gathering saying, quote, "I sometimes wonder if we should stop bullying people by surrounding them with angry mobs shrieking nonsensical slogans. But if we abandon that technique, we'd have to support our ideas with logical arguments, so never mind," unquote. Feminist leader Shrilly Harridan did a postmortem on the failed anti-Kavanaugh protest saying, quote, "Speaking as a totally irrational woman, I thought we could appeal to that feminine energy that disregards facts in favor of hysteria and self-righteous entitlement, and thereby bring all feminist women together into one huge screaming 50-foot shrew raging completely out of control. When that tactic failed, we were left with a bunch of girls acting like lunatics and hoping someone would do whatever we wanted just to get us to shut up. That always worked with Daddy, but somehow it didn't do the trick this time," unquote. Other council members suggested changing some of their slogans and chants to make them more realistic. For instance, the chant, "The people, united, will never be defeated," might be rewritten to say, "A small number of excitable adolescents shouting triumphant-sounding hogwash really has no effect on anything." During the Q&A period, one visitor to the CUCK conference suggested, quote, "Maybe it's just too arrogant and dishonest to claim we're speaking for large identity groups that we essentially invented for our own purposes. Maybe women, minorities, and homosexuals are really large collections of individuals with differing interests and opinions who can't always be formed into a useful mob willing to mindlessly do our bidding in the name of a grievance panic that we created in the first place," unquote. The leftist council took this suggestion under advisement, then beat the visitor to death while chanting slogans and shrieking. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shape, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right, happy Columbus Day, when the best civilization mankind has yet invented spread to this continent. Hooray! That was the best Klavanless weekend ever. We've got a good day. Jenna Ellis is coming to talk to us about something. Something happened to the Supreme Court. I'm not sure what it was. Knowles will be here, and Another Kingdom 2 is up for subscribers. You can go on and find that, and we will talk about that a little bit more later. First, you got to have some coffee with you, and if you get tired of listening to social justice nonsense while you're drinking your coffee, you want to check out Black Rifle Coffee. They not only make terrific coffee, which I'm drinking all the time, they deliver the best roast-to-order coffee right to your door, which guarantees you're getting fresh, premium coffee with every order. And Black Rifle has a coffee club that makes things easy. No lines, no running out, just great coffee shipped right to your door every month, hassle-free. And they also give a portion of their sales to veteran and first responder causes. When you choose Black Rifle, you're choosing a company that supports our veterans and serves coffee and culture to those who love this country, which I know is all of us. Visit blackriflecoffee.com/Klavan and receive, I worry with these guys when I say /Klavan that one of them is going to drop down out of the ceiling, actually /Klavan. But if you put blackriflecoffee.com/Klavan, you will receive 15% off your order. That's blackriflecoffee.com/Klavan for 15% off patriotic and excellent coffee. blackriflecoffee.com/KLAVAN. That's what we all must know. So you are not going to hear this everywhere else that you're tuning on after the Kavanaugh confirmation. You are hearing, oh, now it's a civil war. Now now the blue wave, the red wave, this and that. See, I have this saying that, I don't know if you know Damon Runyon. He wrote these wonderful stories about mobsters. They made them into the musical Guys and Dolls. Damon Runyon didn't say this, but he couldn't. I always say the future is what happened. The future is what hasn't happened yet that we don't know what it is. And I think we don't know any of this stuff. What we do know is that this is a tremendous victory. And if you can't pause for a minute and take a breath and say, wow, great country, this America, you can win these victories still against the mob. if you can't do that, what are you fighting for? If you're not going to enjoy the moments of victory, what are you fighting for? We are fighting to preserve this country. And more important than Kavanaugh, and more important than anything about, everybody says this is all about abortion. It's not all about abortion. Abortion is about the Constitution. Abortion is about the Constitution. It's not about the outcomes of that happen in the Supreme Court. It is about who is to rule us. I say us and our representatives. The left says 5 people in the Supreme Court can just make a ruling and rewrite the Constitution like that. And it's about the rule of law and due process triumphing over the mob. It really is. They really did take the very legitimate complaints of the Me Too movement, the very legitimate complaints about women and how they are treated in workplaces where there are powerful men without consciences. They took those legitimate complaints and they weaponized them to take people's freedom. They weaponize the pain to turn it into hysteria to take people's freedom. And it's done on purpose, and it's done by our old friend, George Soros. A woman, Asra Q. Nomani, a former Wall Street Journal reporter who is a leftist, feminist, pro-abortion person who used to be a reporter for the Wall Street Journal. She has been following the resistance money. Why? Because she's also a reporter. You don't find those too much anymore, but she is a reporter, and she's been following the money, and she's organized her findings into a spreadsheet, which you can get online. At least 50 of the largest organizations that participated as partners in the Women's March received grants from Mr. Soros's Open Society Foundation. He's the guy who does not believe America should have its own sovereignty. He believes that we are the biggest stumbling block to a better world. He has said that he has a messiah complex. He has said he thinks he's a god. And all of this money, the number of Soros-backed partners has grown to at least 80. At least 20 of the largest groups that led the Saturday anti-Kavanaugh protests have been Open Society grantees. And why don't they cover it? This is the best part. She says, I've pieced this together. It's an open secret, but one that journalists avoid. Why? She says many sympathize with the liberal causes, Open Society champions, and some have been paid Open Society fellows or grantees. And this is what the Open Society turns you into. Show that protest where they were beating on the door of the Supreme Court. Here they are. These people went and after the confirmation vote, they started attacking the door of the Supreme Court. It looks like a scene out of Night of the Living Dead. It's Night of the Living Left or Night of the Living Brain Dead or something. It's like they just look like zombies. They turn people into. And that's what made, this is why, and let me just point out one thing. When we're talking about due process and they say, well, there's, Daily Caller had a thing where they went out and interviewed some of these protesters about whether they should get due process. Play that for a minute.
Yes, innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Yeah, but not in this case.
Not in this case.
Yeah. Like, innocent until proven guilty apply here.
I want to believe it, but his behavior is kind of contrary to that.
I feel like it would have been fine if they actually went through with the investigation, but now they're kind of leaving it in the hands of the public.
Proven guilty, does that apply here or no?
But see, the thing is, it's not about innocent or proven guilty. It's about he will not stay still long enough and take responsibility for what has happened already. And it's not, and when the Senate refuses to allow the FBI to investigate him, then it's just sham. It's a total freaking sham.
They're letting him be innocent till proven guilty. What about not the board?
Right.
I mean, hello, there's 2 people involved here. Why isn't she extended the same rights and privileges and courtesy that he's been given?
Do you think that Kavanaugh deserves due process, or is this different from
he don't need to be in this.
It's frightening, right? It's frightening. They're getting rid of due process and the presumption of innocence. And one of the arguments as well, it's not a court of law, it's a job interview. Let me tell a very quick Hollywood story, all right? In Hollywood, Mira Sorvino, a terrific, beautiful actress, one that I think she has an Oscar and a Golden Globe, she got chased around the room by Harvey Weinstein. So what did Harvey Weinstein do? When Peter Jackson was trying to cast Lord of the Rings, a very big movie, right? A very important part for an actress to get. He was looking at Mira Sorvino. He was looking at Ashley Judd, who also got chased around the room by Harvey Weinstein. Weinstein's people call up Jackson and say, these actresses are really, really tough to work with. They are terrible, terrible people. So he didn't hire them. Didn't they deserve the presumption of innocence? I'm not blaming Jackson. He got conned and he really regretted it. He was really sorry about it. But didn't they deserve the presumption of innocence, even in a job interview? Why? Because anybody can say anything about anyone. Your ex-husband, your ex-wife can show up and just slander you in any situation, ruin your life. You always, the accused, not the accuser, gets the presumption of innocence. And you do not want, and that's why this is such a victory. And this is why you have to pause for a minute and say, whoa, what a great country. What a country. And the people were genuinely heroic. And that's the thing I want to talk about in just a second. But first, I have to talk about my underwear. Because, you know, there's nothing more important than my underwear. Because these pair of thieves, this is true, pair of thieves makes this underwear that is incredibly comfortable. It is like you are going commando. You wear it, you do not know you are wearing it. It's the most comfortable underwear you can wear. It's got this moisture-wicking fabric they want me to talk about, but who cares? I don't have to make it. I just have to wear it, and it feels so good. It makes you feel cool and fresh. It's like air conditioning in your pants. One of the guys who started Pair of Thieves says all his wife ever wants to see him is a pair of their super fit briefs, and his wife is Jessica Alba. No, this does not mean you should take pictures of yourself in your Pair of Thieves underwear and send them to Jessica Alba, but you can show them to your wife. For a limited time, this month only, our listeners get 20% off their first order at pairofthieves.com/Klavan. 20% off when you go to pairofthieves.com/Klavan is this month only. And I'm really not joking around. I mean, I actually didn't know I was doing their ad today, and I put them on because they're just so comfortable. Pairofthieves.com/Klavan, and you will just say, how do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan. So these people were genuinely heroes. And a lot of times we think a hero looks like this, basically. Cut 9.
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
But it turns out a hero really looks like this. Cut 6.
Well, nothing is irreparably damaged. This has been a nasty process, initiated in the beginning by Senate Judiciary Democrats and then carried over into the public. We've literally been under assault here by a mob that's going to our homes, brushing up against us in the halls, requiring enhanced security. But look, the good news is the mob didn't win. Justice will be done. We protected the presumption of innocence in this country. It applies in all walks of life, and certainly in Supreme Court confirmations.
Cocaine, Mitch. You know, he said that after Christine Blasey Ford testified, he called up Trump and said, that it's only halftime, we got to stay the course and everything. He was very strong about it. And he told him, I'm stronger than mule's piss on this man. He said, I figured, well, lay off the coke, Mitch. But no, really, who would think that this guy with this very narrow emotional range, as you would say, who looks like that, he's the hero, and we've picked on him. A lot of people, I haven't because I always understood this, but like a lot of people on the right have picked on him because when you're in an organization like that and you're wrangling 50 senators, all of whom have enormous egos, all of whom are excellent politicians, or they wouldn't be, the U.S. senators. It's hard to get everything done, but he has committed himself to these judges. He's got 26 circuit federal court judges. He has done a tremendous job. I have to give a little bit of a nod to Flake. I really picked on Flake when he caved in after the Soros women went after him in the elevator. But he stuck to his guns. He did the right thing. He said I want to hear the FBI report, and that did actually convince a lot of people, one of whom was another of the heroes here, was Susan Collins. And all we've heard about is, women, you have to listen to women, you have to believe women. But that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is you have to listen to leftists. And if the leftists are women, great. And if they're not women, we're going to take them down. And Susan Collins just spoke so clearly about why she was voting for Kavanaugh, that it really was like mommy came home. I don't think Collins actually has any children, but it was like mommy came home and found the children had gone insane and were punching each other. And it was like, everybody go to their room and think about due process. I mean, this is what the speech was like. Listen.
This debate is complicated further by the fact that the Senate confirmation process is not a trial. But certain fundamental legal principles about due process, the presumption of innocence and fairness, do bear on my thinking, and I cannot abandon them.
for her. It really was like mommy came home, like boys, gang, we got to have some due process, presumption of innocence. Kavanaugh was a hero. Kavanaugh himself was a hero because he stood up for himself. And that moment that they tried to they tried to weaponize his anger and his hurt against him. He was advised before going in, Brian McCann, I think his name is. He's the guy who organizes Trump's judge picks and has done such a great job. He said to him, show him how you feel. Show him how you feel. And he went in and he showed him he was angry. He was hurt. He was upset. He had been slandered. He had been viciously treated. And that put some spine into the Republicans. That was a heroic thing to do. And one thing we should take away from that, especially the boys here, is like, stand up for yourself. Don't let them tell you, oh, just stay down, keep your head down. Don't let them attack you. People have paid a lot higher prices for freedom than just being attacked on Twitter, than just being attacked by your friends, by just, getting bad grades in school from an unkind and dishonest leftist professor. People have paid higher prices than that. Kavanaugh did the right thing. That was heroic. And another guy who I have to tell you, is really hard for me to call this guy a hero for a lot of reasons, and I'll tell you some of them, but Trump was a hero. Donald Trump. When you charge over a hill, and you're running into gunfire, you don't know who the guy next to you is. The guy next to you may be a bad guy. He may cheat on his wife. He may embezzle money. But in that moment, he may be doing the heroic thing. And Donald Trump, I'm not sure how many Republican presidents would have stood by this guy in the hour of need. Now, I'm sure that McConnell stiffened his spine when it was needed, but still, we know Trump is a fighter. We know he is a belligerent. We know he will not back down, and he didn't back down. It would have been a lot easier for him. A lot of people were saying it would have been a lot easier for him to say, all right, you don't like this candidate, but the principle mattered. The principle was everything. More important than Kavanaugh himself is the principle. Let's listen to Trump selling it.
You don't hand matches to an arsonist, and you don't give power to an angry left-wing mob, and that's what they've become. The Democrats have become too extreme and too dangerous to govern. Republicans believe in the rule of law, not the rule of the mob.
Good for President Donald. It is time to just stop for a minute and remember this is still a country with heroes in it. This is still a country with principles. It's still a country that stands fast, even in the face of the mob. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Tomorrow, the battle starts again. Now the battle starts again. The election is coming. But for a moment, you've got to take a breath and remember, this is a beautiful thing. Have we got Jenna? Bring on the wonderful Jenna Ellis. I'm telling you, I didn't get your rent check, Jenna. You're supposed to be paying rent on this studio at this point. But I caved.
Yes, well, I haven't gotten my tiara yet, so I think we're fair on that one.
All right. Well, I caved into the Twitter mob demanding that you come back. But I'm always so happy to see you. Director of the Dobson Policy Center, a constitutional lawyer. Her book is The Legal Basis for a Moral Constitution. You look like you're in Washington, D.C. Don't tell me. Are you invited to the confirmation?
I am, and it's very exciting. I'm here at the Trump International Hotel right now, so that's very exciting. And Dr. Dobson and I will be attending the swearing-in event at the White House tonight, which is a great honor. That
is great. Well, you are there for us all. You are representing all of us, and that's really terrific. I'm glad to hear it. So what does this mean from a legal standpoint? I mean, this is the stuff that we don't have the expertise to know. You know about Kavanaugh's decisions. You know the cases he's going to be facing right away, some of them, because the court's in session. What do you think is the immediate effects that we'll see?
Well, the immediate effect, I mean, nobody is sitting here talking about, oh my gosh, product liability is just going to totally change. I mean, we're talking about a conservative majority, mainly for the issues that the left has been using to manipulate an activist court for the last 50 and 60 years. And so in the initial term here, I think what's going to be interesting is to see what cases they actually vote to bring on the docket, because only 4 justices need to vote affirmative to grant what's called the writ of cert or the cert petition to get a case on the docket. And so Justice Kavanaugh now will represent, I think, an important fourth vote to get cases that may otherwise have not been heard, like the Masterpiece Cake Shop case from last year. That stood pending for several years before they got to 4 votes to actually hear that. So I think we're going to be seeing more religious liberty issues, more freedom of speech issues, more First Amendment cases generally, and things that a conservative court will now hopefully try to continue to preserve and protect our fundamental freedoms through cases that they add on to the docket.
So that's really interesting. Was it Kennedy, you feel, who was not that fourth vote when those cases like Cake Shop were coming up?
Yeah, and Justice Kennedy had a very interesting dynamic on the court. He was known as the swing voter, the most powerful man in Washington because of that. And he did definitely believe in our fundamental protections, but where he was very weak and non-conservative was on the social issue agendas. And so, of course, he wrote the Obergefell versus Hodges majority opinion, the same-sex marriage opinion. And that case, frankly, read like a Hallmark card. I mean, it was something that was not legally robust. It absolutely went against the constitutional framework. And that was all 4 of the dissents in that case were very clear that this was potentially a win for the LGBT agenda, but it was not a win for the Constitution. And so where Justice Brett Kavanaugh, I think, will step in and be different than Anthony Kennedy is looking at protecting and preserving the Constitution. He has had a very, very clear track record, and even conservatives initially wanted Amy Coney Barrett. Some of them did, but for Kavanaugh specifically, I think that the reason that both sides were a little bit hesitant in the beginning is because he's not an outcome-based jurist. And as a constitutional law attorney, I think that's actually the most appropriate justice that we can have on the court.
That's really interesting. I mean, Susan Collins spoke at length. By the way, I have to just mention that the dissent, Antonin Scalia's dissent in Obergefell is one of the great pieces of writing. I think everybody should read that. Susan Collins was talking about this, that he is, in fact, he is bound to precedent. He does respect the precedent that may keep something like Roe v. Wade in place after so many years. What is it, like 45 years? Do you agree with that?
I think that if Brett Kavanaugh is looking at the Constitution, then he will apply the originalist doctrine. And that means there is no right to abortion in the Constitution. We've talked about this before in the sense that if they are actually faithfully applying what the legislature can actually legislate pursuant to Article 1 of the Constitution, that is not a right to privacy that covers abortions in those circumstances. And so if they were to overturn it, I think it will be by degree, and it will then, the easiest way to do that is from a federalist perspective to say this is really a state issue. Right. Turn that back to the states. And what's fascinating about that is even the Murphy versus NCAA case that even Justice Kennedy last term voted. It was a 5-4 decision on the state gambling statutes. That was a federalist decision where 5 justices who were acting as originalists said, this isn't something that we as the federal government can regulate. This has to go back down to the states. And if we're not looking at this from a politically biased perspective, that's really where it should go. And I think that the Supreme Court with a Justice Brett Kavanaugh, we will see that within the next couple of years. And this is why the left is so angry and why they're putting up from the Women's March today on their Twitter a banner of Susan Collins saying she is a rape apologist. It's absolutely ridiculous because they're saying we only support the women who we agree with, and their agenda is completely pro-abortion. It's not about the Constitution. It's not protecting liberty or life.
That rape apologist sign is another Soros-funded effort that was put out there by one of his organizations. My last question is the position of John Roberts. A lot of conservatives, Ben Shapiro among them, are very disappointed with Roberts. I feel a little bit more, I approve of him a little bit more. What position do you think this is going to put Roberts? Does Roberts now become Kennedy? Does he become the swing vote on the court?
He's probably the one that on some of these issues, like we saw, we were all disappointed in him for the Obamacare decision. Yeah. For some of those issues, he tends to be a little bit more of a broader government intervention. So I think that the cases that we need to look at are immigration issues, and especially the administrative state. So when we're looking at something like Chevron deference, which is, of course, the legal term for saying what does the federal judicial branch have to adhere to when an administrative agency is looking at interpreting and applying a congressional statute. How much deference do we give them to interpret their own mandate? And I think those cases in particular will be very interesting for Roberts. But he has a lot of colleagues now who hopefully, now that Justice Kennedy has stepped aside and resigned, hopefully he will find himself among a conservative majority that will encourage him to do the right thing. And again, faithfully apply the Constitution. This isn't outcome-based. This isn't just saying that, okay, now conservatives, if you identify with a certain group, now we're pushing our agenda through. Conservatism is about conserving the rule of law, having liberty and justice for all. That's what our Constitution provides, but within those limited margins of government. So I think this is a great day for America.
Amen, amen. Thanks very much, Jenna. It's always great to see you, and I'm really excited you're going to be at the confirmation. We'll be thinking about you.
I'll send you pictures. Thanks so much for having me, Andrew.
Have a great time. All right. You want to put up yeah, there it is. Another Kingdom. Finally, the Daily Wire has launched the next chapter in Another Kingdom, a podcast series written by by me. I'm sorry. It's and performed by Michael Knowles. And I got to say it. I'm not going to say this when he comes on because I would hate. Just the words wouldn't come out of my mouth. He did such a great job bringing this thing to life. Today and on every following Monday, subscribers to the Daily Wire will be able to watch the new episodes of Season 2. If you're not a subscriber, shame on you. You'll have to wait until Fridays to watch the episodes, and you'll only get to see the first 15 minutes, and then you can listen to the rest. But you will not get this incredible visual component. It is so beautiful. Let's take a look at the clip from the first episode of Season 2, and you can see how great it looks.
Then, finally, it was dark. Time to go. With the locket still in my hand, I rolled off the bed. There was nothing to pack. I had nothing with me. I ditched my phone so no one could trace me. I'd stopped at an ATM near LA to stock up on cash. I couldn't use credit cards. They could trace those too. I dismantled the GPS in my car. No internet, no social media. I was invisible. And I was utterly alone. I crossed the shit-brown carpet to the door. I opened the door onto the night outside. There was Billiard Ball. He stood gigantically on the threshold, framed in the doorway with the parking lot lights glaring behind him. Before I could react, he jabbed me in the neck with a stun gun. The electric blast sent me reeling back into the room, convulsing, down to the floor. I dropped to the carpet, jerking and shuddering. My muscles were locked up, immobile. All I could do was lie there and judder and watch as Billiard Ball stepped calmly into the room and calmly shut the door behind him. His enormous shoulders were packed into a leather jacket. His muscles bulged through the thin sweater he wore underneath. He looked down at my quivering body without a smile, without a sneer, without any emotion at all. He hardly seemed interested in what he saw. He reached into his jacket and slid the little stun gun into his left inside pocket. Then he reached across into his right inside pocket and drew out a small leather case. Terror exploded inside me as I watched him unzip the case and deftly remove a syringe. I made a horrible, helpless, gurgling noise in my throat as I battled to get control of my body. It was no use. My muscles had been severed from my will.
Man, that looks great. That is amazing. You can just see the drawing come to life and fill itself out if you're listening to us. So here's how it works, all right? If you are a subscriber, you get it on Monday, you can watch the entire thing. If you're not a subscriber, you get it on Friday and you can watch the first 15 minutes, but you can listen to the rest. Everything will be available on audio on Friday for everybody, but why wait? Head on over to dailywire.com and subscribe to watch the first and second seasons of Another Kingdom. And we have got, this is a real coup, we have got the star of Another Kingdom with us right here. I got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube, but we're going to bring on Knowles in just a second. Come on over to dailywire.com where you can listen to the rest of the show. And while you're there, subscribe. You get Another Kingdom. You get all our shows. You get to be in the mailbag and all your problems get solved. I mean, that's for $10 a month. Great deal. $100. You get the whole year. We'll throw in the leftist tears tumbler. You are going to need this, baby, because there's more to come coming up. We got Knowles coming up in just a minute.